ROMs. Hey everyone, how's it going? Elliot here, and welcome back to the Retro Future. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hyperkin Smart Boy. Turn your phone into a Game Boy. What could possibly go wrong? So this company thought it'd be a good idea to make a legal way of playing Game Boy games on your phone. Now that is quite an attractive thing because your phones have really nice screens on them. Compared that to the old Game Boys, they're pretty nasty. And everyone has a phone, right? I mean, ignore the fact that they only were able to release one for Android and specifically marketed it towards Samsung, and it actually is licensed by Samsung, which is quite cool. Brave of them to put their name to that, I think. But yeah, so obviously, if you have an iPhone, this was unusable. Still is, you can't get an adapter for it. And I don't think you can just emulate Game Boy games on your iPhone without jailbreaking it or whatever. It's a really nice product. Let's take a look at it. So the box is all nice and fancy. Hyperkin do things quite well. You know, usually their products are nice and high quality, and this one is no different. The problems do not come from the quality of the item itself. All the problems are software related, but we'll get onto that in just a second. You've got some manuals and some bits and bobs. They do seem to avoid quite a lot, to telling you quite a lot. I think that's probably, you know, trying to keep them safe from, you know, being liable for any sort of ROM copyright stuff from Nintendo, which does leave you to have to do a lot of things yourself and figure out a lot of things yourself. Now, the problem with that is it makes it a very specific thing for very specific people. Again, we're going to continue and expand on this in just a second, but let's take a look at the product itself. So you get two things in the box. You get this USB-C sort of extension lead. So this thing just plugs all the way down into the bottom of here, into the USB-C port, and then you can plug that end into your phone. What's quite cool about this is there's 2 points of adjustment. You can adjust the USB-C up and down, and you can also adjust the size of the device that goes into it. They made this around the Samsung Galaxy S8, so any of the devices for Android with USB-C around that era, they claim most of them would fit and work in this, but obviously some of that is not going to still stand now. I had to go out and buy a Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. This one was smashed from Facebook. It was 50 quid. But yeah, it's a really nice device. You know what? I have to give it to them. Before I got this phone and I tried it out, my hopes were high. The device itself is lovely. It feels like the bottom half of a Game Boy. The plastic feels like the same quality. The buttons all feel great. The start and select is plastic as opposed to the rubber, but that's fine. But yeah, honestly, it looks great, and it's obviously been made to look very much like the Game Boy, albeit this is the long one that I made. But yeah, you can see they've gone for the same sort of design on the back, and the buttons are all the same, and yeah, it looks lovely and it feels lovely. And then it all goes downhill. It really does. So in order to set this thing up, I'm not going to go through the whole process of setting it up because it's a nightmare. You have to download two things. My Old Boy Free is one of them, and Smart Boy Companion is the other one. And when you set it up, you download the Smart Boy Companion and you plug it in, you get a bunch of pop-ups and things that happen on the screen, and it asks you if you'd like to always use the open the app by default when you plug it in. There's loads of different things which you can't access under the screen, obviously. So what you constantly have to do is take the phone out of the device to set it up. Now you can look past that. Another thing you can do is just plug this big doohickey in, and then obviously you have full access to the screen. But the problems don't stop there, and pulling it out is something that you do quite frequently, and I'm sure there's loads of jokes to be made about that. But yeah, you have to pull the phone out so much that they should have included a bloody microfiber cloth and a screen wiping kit, because it's just an absolute nightmare. It just gets fingerprints all over your phone. On this thing, there's buttons all over it, so you can hardly put it out, you know, from the sides, and you need quite a fair bit of grip, unless you're constantly having to adjust, and then you have to plug it all back in again, you know, by adjusting that, tying it up, and off you go. And you might think, oh, well, how often are you going to be setting up menu-related stuff? You have to do that ritual every time you change the game. Let me show you. So I've got a couple of games here. You plug this in, okay? Loading cartridge data, loading complete, fantastic. What that's doing is just taking the ROM, loads it into the phone, but it's not a permanent thing. So when you run the launch software, you then open SmartBoy GB, and you click on that, and you're off, and you can play it. Now that whole thing, perfect. That whole thing was seamless. This is where the problems begin. So when you want to change a game, what do you think you do? I don't know, exit out of this and then unplug the game? Nope. Piracy note. It's a serious crime to copy video games, be nice and play safe. So what it's saying is, unless you have the game plugged in, you can't play it. So how do you think you get rid of this message? Well, you don't. It stays on the screen for bloody ages, and I've actually found no way of getting rid of it other than to plug the game back into the back of it, and eventually it will go. So then you go back into SmartBoy Companion, alright, and you, I don't know, unplug the game. Okay, let's just plug a different game in. So what do you do now? Okay, so we unplug this, we plug this back in. Maybe there's a little setting up here to tell the phone that you're going to eject the game and that everything's going to be just fine, not to worry. No, there's no buttons at all. So what do you do then? Well, you have to close the app. That doesn't seem too bad. Let's just... Oh yeah, you can't do that whilst the phone is in here. So there we go. There's your first unplug of the device, and then you can open up the applications that you have and close them all, and then you can plug the device back into the Hyperkin SmartBoy thing, load up the SmartBoy app, which will do it automatically because it just recognizes it's plugged into the USB-C, and then you can take your next game, refresh, sometimes you have to do that. There we go, run launch software, smartboy.gb, and you're straight into it. Now, admittedly, once you're in, it looks fantastic. I've had no problems with the D-pads and the buttons and the inputs. Everything works and plays gorgeous. I haven't had any problem with the emulation. It just looks fantastic. There's very, very slight latency, but it's hardly anything at all. You've got the benefit of the modern speakers of your phone, so it sounds crisp. So let's say you want to change game now. So you can go up to here and you can click save, and then you can just put it into slot 1. And what's that done? Okay. Maybe that's alright now. If we click load, there we go. So slot 1 has now sorted itself out. So if you plug that game back in later on, the save state is going to be saved in the actual application. So it's fine. So now what you can do is eject the phone again. And then you can take this game out, plug the phone back in. And now we can take another game. So here is Tetris, and just to show you that it's not saved in some sort of a database, it is actually transferring the ROM. I'm plugging in a very rare version of Tetris that has a different soundtrack to the normal copies of Tetris. So when you click Run Launch Software, oh yeah, I forgot to mention as well, you have to close the app, otherwise it's just going to open up the previous game you had installed. So we can close all of that, plug it back in again. There we go, now we're into the game. And as you can hear, it's the Minuet copy. But yeah, it does look absolutely fantastic. Little bit of latency. It's a bit more noticeable in Tetris, where obviously it's crucial that your button presses are at the right time. But it does work, and it does look fantastic. This thing was released back in the day for, I believe, £50 a few years ago. It was originally a sort of a bit of an April Fool's joke, I think, from Hyperkin. And then they actually went ahead, due to popular demand, and actually made it. So, what about Game Boy Advance, I hear you scream? Well, let's see what happens when we plug the Game Boy Advance games in. So there we go. We can, you know, pop this thing back in. You might have noticed there is actually triggers for the L and R. So let's take a Game Boy Advance game and plug it in. Nothing's happening, and that's because it doesn't have Game Boy Advance support. Hyperkin explained that apparently it takes too long for the Hyperkin SmartBoy to read the Game Boy Advance ROM, and I can kind of understand that. But then why include these L and R buttons? Because that's basically saying, look, you can download a ROM if you want, and you can use these L and R buttons, but then when you unplug the game, we're going to give you an error message that's going to get stuck on your phone. So look, let's cut to the chase. I appreciate we're now around 10 minutes into this video and there's people still shouting, does it play Game Boy Color games? Yes, it does. The Game Boy Color games look lovely. When you're in a game, it's absolutely fine. It isn't necessary, realistically, because you can just play with the on-screen buttons. I personally never enjoyed that, so I'm a big fan of having that tactile input. But then the other 50% of this thing being made in the first place was the fact that you could actually use your Game Boy games, which removes the sort of the whole shady ROM thing, searching for ROMs, downloading ROMs, the whole legalities of that entire thing. It doesn't work that well. You know, interchanging games is such a faff. Having to use a separate application that isn't associated with Hyperkin in order to, you know, play the Game Boy games. They're not making the software for it. If you only want to download Hyperkin related software, then you're not going to be able to use this product. You have to download that My Old Boy thing. You have to then pay £3.49 or about $5 to unlock more by downloading the full version of My Old Boy. The one that I'm using is only the free one, but I think I have seen some people actually taking a game like Zelda, plugging it in, or Pokemon, and then their save file shows up. I haven't been able to do that, but I think that's because I haven't paid for the app. Maybe I'll do that and I'll do a follow-up video in the future on my channel, on my second channel, but there we go. I mean, it's really difficult to really fully dig it when it's so hard to, because, you know, it's only compatible with X amount of phones. It halves the market immediately, the fact that it can't work with an iPhone. It's one of those. I like it a lot. It's a really tough one. I know this video feels well serious, but I've had so many people talk to me about this and recommend it to me and ask me to do a video on it. So hopefully this has explained why I think the Hyperkin failed quite badly. But yeah, I cannot deny when you're in the game, it plays lovely. I hope you've all enjoyed this video. A really long-winded rant, maybe not. I won't do that in the next one, but let me know if you've enjoyed it. And let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you do pick one up, I bought mine for £25 on eBay. Make sure you get this so that you can get through the very treacherous setup at the start of this video. None of this was scripted, by the way. This was all off of the old head. I really love making these videos. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye.